an Indian marriage, where things are chaotic, everybody blames each other, nobody is happy, but we are wedded together. And to take that a little further and on a very lighter note, as they say that marriages are made in heaven, but suffered on earth. So I mean, in this marriage, I mean, if I take this as a marriage of the power sector, I think it's the investors probably who were on seventh heaven, seventh cloud. I mean, all the changes that somebody brought about, that the early 2000s, the whole unbundling and the regulators' role, PPP, then UMPP, coal linkage, everything, and then people thought, what a great sector to invest in. This was the poster boy. Power was the poster boy within the whole infrastructure and the India story of India. All of us launched infrastructure funds, collected a lot of money and gave a lot of money to most of these people, both the risk capital as well as the debt capital. All the numbers that he showed, of course, I mean, there's a kind of potential which was shown, but the things that have happened in last 2 or 3 years, and this gets reflected in the stock market return. If you take the BSE Power Index and the overall Sensex and see the comparison in last 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, a significant underperformance. And BSE Power sector consists of all the players in the eco chain, right from the generators in both thermal as well as hydro, to the power equipment manufacturers, to financiers, to I mean the EPC contractors, and then everybody else in the whole eco chain. So that shows the investors' concerns. And somebody can say that I don't want to lose my sleep, as is typically a response from finance minister when market crashes. Don't want to lose my sleep on what's happened in the stock market. But this reflects the concerns of the investor. And it's not only the equity market, but even the debt investors. If you talk to banks and financial institutions, I think the limits have got stressed, and banks are getting extremely concerned about their exposure to the sector, given all the problems. We won't go much deeper into it. We had a lot of debate on the coal and some of the other issues. I don't want to repeat all of them, but because of those concerns, I mean, we can have a serious problem in terms of the availability of money to the sector for the future growth, the amount of money that is required, the whole, the expectations of putting another 100,000 megawatts in the 12th plan, the amount of money that is needed, and also the cost of money, because at the rate of returns for these projects, I mean, it can have a significant impact if the cost of money goes up, and also the availability of money if that goes up. He also mentioned about that these conferences give me an impression about, I'm still in 1986, the conference, and the issues used to be very, very, very similar. And that shows that the whole reform process that we started in early 2000, I think we have not been able to fully leverage on that. We have not been able to take the full advantage of that. For example, we have set up a lot of generation capacity in last few years. Lots of projects which are under construction today, which will get ready in another year or two. Significant capacity will get added. But the whole ecosystem that was required for it, I think there was complete lack of cohesive approach. And that's the concern of the investor. And I'm really worried that over the next couple of probably quarters, we are really running out of time. If we don't see concrete action, then it can have significant impact on the potential, particularly in the next plan, 2012 to 2017. So, for example, the unbundling and the distribution companies, I think the political interference has been so high that the advantages that should have come from the whole distribution side has not really happened. And when I say the whole ecosystem, I mean, we discussed a lot about the problems in terms of coal, and people have to now import a lot of amount of coal. If you just project the coal supply that is going to come in next 3 or 4 years, and the coal requirement that is going to would be there in next 3 or 4 years, only the projects that are under the construction stage. I mean, by 2014, we may have to import something like 180, 190 million tons of coals. Where is that going to come from? I mean, your Indonesia, Australia, Mozambique, prices are not going to be here where they are already today. They are already unviable at those prices, but the prices may be significantly higher if India is going to import that kind of coal. Where is the port capacity, railway? I would have loved, in fact, and in the morning panel, we saw the debate between the power minister and its power secretary and the coal secretary. Had there been somebody from railway and ports, and probably somebody from SCB as well. And probably that's the concern of the investor, that we really don't have that cohesive approach which is really needed by this sector. We only talked about the coal. What about the water? Huge amount of capacity is going to come in Chhattisgarh, which is one of the most fertile area in this country, and we have got a massive food problem. And we have recently seen in Amravati what can happen. I mean, if in a drought-prone area, you put up a power project, there's going to be massive protest. Lots of projects probably might have an issue I hope that's not the chit for the time. So I mean, I really don't know. I mean, some of these generators, I mean, apart from the watcher, apart from the port, their ability to take coal either from the Coal India or from the imported, the other issue. So what will happen? So as an investor, I mean, when I look at these generators, either they will have substantially lower PLF, or probably they will have to incur losses. Of course, I mean, one can argue that, I mean, this was a commercial decision, probably, I mean, contractual obligations, but if they significantly bleed its impact on the overall financial sector and the ability of the sector to raise money going forward. Even if, we know one of the case where, I mean, they have gone to High Court and then it'll go to Supreme Court, but in that 5 or 7 years, the amount of losses that would be incurred. So we need some clarity on that very, very early. Otherwise, that whole projection of 100,000 megawatt in 12 plan would probably remain a dream. I won't go too much into detail, but the same thing about the hydro, alternative energy. I mean, I don't think anybody in this country has made money, I mean, as an investor. And then there are serious amount of work that needs to be done if we really want to reduce our reliance over coal or our reliance over the fossil fuels. So something has to be done very seriously about if we want a serious capital to come into that sector on the alternative energy. As I mentioned about the imported coal, I mean, you compare India versus China, I mean, the whole ecosystem that they have put up, unless we have that kind of approach, where we will have a serious problem. Land acquisition, I mean, it's going to change the whole dynamics quite dramatically, but it wasn't thought about. Environment, the way it has changed the whole dynamics, the whole paradigm has changed. But none of these things were really thought about 3 or 4 years back, and of course, investors have kind of suffered. Now, coming to SEBs, I mean, it's become the Achilles heel. The whole distribution companies, their results are not available after 2009. The AT&C losses, the way they should have come, they have not come off. The amount of investment that should have happened in technology, the political interference, I mean, all those issues are still very much around. I hope that probably some of the state electricity boards have announced the increase in tariffs, and then all the other states really follow suit, because I think if you do the calculation, it's something like 100% increase that you have to take, which I know, I mean, politically is not possible, but substantial amount of increase is required. And Gujarat is a classic case, and that's why I believe that it's a political will. There is no regulatory changes. One cannot say that we are in a coalition politics. There is nothing that is required which requires approval from parliament, where you have to worry about your opposition or coalition partner. These are all operational matters where a couple of secretaries and the people can sit in a room and can probably sort out some of these issues, including the SEBs and the other stakeholders. For example, on the tariff side, Gujarat is a classic example. If every state takes the tariffs to the Gujarat level, I think the SEB losses will come up by 50% on an aggregate basis. And that clearly shows, and where all the industries are going. I mean, I can't understand why people don't see the simple fact that where today all the industries are going to. I mean, that's the kind, I mean, a state which is attracting more new investments across projects. And where the agriculture is going the highest in this country, 8 or 9% in Gujarat, and then see their tariffs and see the tariffs in most of the other places. It's as simple as that. I won't go into calculations. I mean, this is a very august gathering of people who understand. So coming to the financial sector, I mean, as I'm telling, I was mentioning that whether it's the equity markets or the debt market, that we don't have a long-term bond markets. Banks have really exhausted their limit in terms of the exposure to the long end. The sector requires a lot of long-term money. So we haven't really worked very hard in terms of developing that long-term bond market, where the resources that are required in the next 5, 7, 10 years, which can be provided by our financial markets. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the banks, if you talk to them, they're already getting hugely concerned about their exposure to the sector, right from the generation to the contractors to their exposure to SEBs, to distribution companies. I mean, there are several cases that we have been reading in newspapers about the distribution companies in Haryana and some of the other places, how financial sector is getting worried about it. So we're talking about the coal, but the availability of money could be a serious issue. But I mean, and the another issue, how much confidence that investors had in this. Maybe 1 or 2 great success stories. I mean, without taking the name, you know the player. Because of the backward integration, they fully leveraged the potential in merchant power, the amount of money that they made, and probably the money that the investors made. Several other players, lots of corporate groups who had the project execution ability and the ability to raise capital, thought that this was one of the easier business to get in, huge amount of capital can be put in with assured kind of return for a long time. And because of that kind of visibility of cash flows, financial sector kind of overextended or probably kind of was very, very supportive of this. And it was 80-20, 80 debt, 20 became a norm. And in fact, if you had the losses for first or second year, it almost became 100% debt. There's a kind of confidence that the financial sector had. But now, I mean, if we don't sort out most of these issues, I think incremental capital will have a serious issue. I still want to end on a positive note that if you look at our history, always we have never done anything out of conviction, but we never fail in delivering out of compulsion. And I think those compulsion are coming, and I hope that the crisis that we are seeing will lead to a further set of reforms, and ultimately the goal that we have and probably providing power to everybody in this country probably can be achieved if we use this crisis as an opportunity to further reform the whole sector, right from all the problems. Again, I don't want to repeat all of them, and again somebody can play that ad, power on to India on. Thank you.